Welcome. You're listening to the Profiles in Leadership podcast with Steve Anderson, sponsored by VGM Advantage. I'm your host, Steve Anderson, and today we'll be speaking to Josh D'Angelo, who is a new professional in the field of physical therapy, about his goals and dreams and aspirations as an entrepreneurial physical therapist. Joshua D'Angelo is an orthopedic certified specialist, and Josh earned his Doctor of Physical Therapy from the George Washington University in 2013, where he was the sole student in his university-wide graduating class awarded with the prestigious George Washington Award. He was also awarded the Mary McMillan Scholarship after the profession's namesake in the final year of his physical therapy program. Josh currently serves as an adjunct instructor in the Doctor of Physical Therapy program at his alma mater, an outpatient orthopedic doctor of physical therapy with Innova Health Systems in Fairfax, Virginia, a chief operations officer of Move Together, Inc., and he is also working with close friends to begin developing a business in the physical therapy arena. He is proud to have a diverse set of roles and responsibilities as he develops his career. Josh co-founded PT Day of Service, which launched in 2015 and has already gathered nearly 8,000 participants from all 50 states and 42 countries across the world. Josh and his friend Ifosa Wobadia co-founded the 501c3 nonprofit organization Move Together, whose mission is to increase access to quality rehabilitation medicine around the corner and around the world. Josh served in a variety of leadership roles as a student and a new professional, including chair of the New Professionals Project Committee of APTA, the president of the APTA Student Assembly in 2012-2013, and as vice president of Health Sciences of the George Washington University Medical Center Student Council. Hi, Josh. Welcome to the program.
Hey, Steve, how you doing?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful sunny day in the fall in Seattle, so it's a great day to have a conversation. So thanks for joining the program.
Yeah, it's absolutely my pleasure, and thank you so much for having me on. I know I look up to a leader like yourself a lot, so it's really a privilege, and I feel very humbled to be having this conversation with you here today.
Well, thanks for the kind words. We first met I think it was about 4 years ago when you were president of the Student Conclave, correct?
Yeah, the Student Assembly of the American Physical Therapy Association. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I always get those mixed up. So Conclave and Assembly are similar but different.
Yeah, so the conclave is coming up in October, late October. Right. That's the conference that they'll have a couple thousand students come to. And if you have any students listening, it's a great opportunity to meet a couple thousand actually of students from across the nation, learn a little bit about what the profession has to offer, and make some relationships that'll hopefully last a lifetime.
Yeah, that's great. And that's in Portland, Oregon in October, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly enough, I started my career in Portland, Oregon many, many, many years ago. So why don't you just share with us, with our listeners today, you've been a new professional. You've been a PT now for, going on 4 years now? Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm coming up on my 4th anniversary of graduation, so almost 4 years now.
Okay, great. I was something caught my eye that I thought was really interesting when you got out of school. I can't remember where I saw it, but you actually wrote a little paper that kind of said the 7 things I've learned in my first year as a PT. And I thought it was really, really great, and I've shared that with students before. And one of them I thought that was really interesting was that you mentioned that you need to take hold and take charge of your mentorship and not expect someone to give it to you. So why don't you just expand on that a little bit and tell our listeners what you discovered in that area?
Yeah, Steve, you mentioned that article when we were talking about having this conversation, and I actually had to go back and read it because I didn't remember what I had said. So my first step was to go back and read it, and it was an article I wrote for pthaven.com right about at the year mark after I had graduated. And so one of the things I mentioned was that you really need to take a hold of your own career and develop your own mentorship opportunities. And what I kind of realized is that school is a very black and white environment, right? Where there's very clear lines between right and wrong. There's very clear structure for what sort of mentorship is offered. You have office hours that professors have time dedicated to helping students develop. And oftentimes when we go from graduation, when we graduate, we go from a world that's black and white to a world that's a lot more gray. And so, what I found was that essentially, if you don't start to take the responsibility for your own learning, it becomes much harder to get that same time from your mentors, because there's a lot of things in the outside world that are taking your managers or your bosses or your mentors time and attention. Everything from patient care to maybe administrative responsibilities. And so one of the recommendations that I made was, for example, if you are scheduled to have mentorship time or supposed to have mentorship time, to block that time off on your schedule just to ensure that it is happening every week or every month or however often it may be. And if you take that initiative to actually schedule the time out, the time that you were promised, it's just much more likely to happen. Because I've been in situations where I was promised a certain amount of mentorship and it just didn't happen, or it got buried under the needs of that particular day. Right. So we know going into our career, it's one of the most important things that we need in that first year. But we really have to take the initiative to make sure it comes to fruition.
Yeah, you're so right. In the lectures that I've given at PT schools to students, is one of the things I tell them, that if you ask any physical therapist that you potentially may work for or work with, and you say, do you mentor your new professionals, and they always say yes. And I don't think it's not being truthful, but how do you define mentorship? And so I think you really need to look for those programs that have the mentorship that is structured. In other words, as you said, time blocked out, time with a certified mentor who knows how to mentor people and really goes through the program. And that's much different than just saying, hey, what do you think about this patient and these symptoms? It's watching you treat a patient. It's letting you discover what you're good at and what you can do better, and then kind of leading you through that process. So identifying that structure, I think, is very important as a new professional when you're looking to go to work with other colleagues.
Yeah, and I would even take that one step further and say, once you have the identified time, make sure you know what you want to get out of that time. I moved on from my first clinic to a second clinic that had that identified time. And the first question of our mentorship time was, well, how would you like to use this time? And I thought that was actually a great question, because it really made me reflect on what structure I could use, or process I could undertake to help become a better clinician, and become my most effective and highly skilled self. And so we developed a paradigm that would work specifically for me before even we started developing or going into that mentorship time itself. So really I made the point in the article, know who you want to learn from and know what you want to learn. And that'll make the whole process that much easier.
That's great advice. And you being very involved in the, in the student assembly, I've run across a couple new professionals that have kind of stumbled, let's say, or made, jumped into this profession with tons of excitement, enthusiasm, and just looking for this great thing, and then been a little bit disheartened or not found really what their journey was or what they wanted to do. And I wonder if, in the student assembly like that, does it get a little idealistic and a little, this is the great world we're looking forward to, and then when you jump into it, it's very different. I mean, did you experience that?
Yeah, my experience was along those same lines, and I would say unfortunately it is something common that we hear. Right out of school, what I did is I was looking for something or somewhere with that idealistic environment like the student assembly had, where it was such a special experience because there were a ton of passionate and really motivated and talented people all coming together for the same purpose. And I used to joke around with some friends. I would say, I don't know what I want to do in my career, be it administration or business, a skilled clinician or something else, or research. but I know that I want to work with people that I love, and I think as soon as I identified that, what I started to do was just try new things and start to build relationships with people who I knew I wanted to work with in the future. So my first year out, Steve, I tried a bunch of different things. I started doing a little home care in the wellness world. I took a bunch of continuing education. I served on a committee for the DC chapter, and I ended up serving as an alternate delegate and a delegate in the House of Delegates in APTA. So I started trying all these different things, and it wasn't until finally I sent a Facebook message to a colleague of mine and now a good friend, Ifosa, and I knew Ifosa did a lot of service trips, and so I sent him a Facebook message and say, hey, I've never really traveled, I've never been out of the country, but I really love the service work that you're doing, and the pictures you post look deeply meaningful. I would love to join you on a service trip in the future. Could I maybe join you on your next one? And of course, Ifosa wrote back and said, yeah, absolutely, let's make that happen. And so, certainly I had that idealistic perspective that you were talking about, but what I think I did was I just started trying new things until I finally found that one thing that spoke to me and that I was so passionate about that I just, didn't want to ever give up. And when I went on that service trip with Ifosa, which was over 3 years ago now, I had finally found it.
And that's that's a big step. I mean, it's one thing to see it or to visualize it and want to do that, but it's another thing to not only take the trip, but then from there you looked at it on a very entrepreneurial type of approach. In other words, you and Ifosa put together PT Day of Service, and now you're working on this company called Move Together. So tell us a little bit about how you take that step from being in the day-to-day, and maybe it isn't quite what you expected, but it's somewhat comfortable and familiar, to into this world where you don't know where you're going and you don't know how you're going to make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So Ifosa tells the story so well of how he came up with the idea of PT Day of Service, and I can kind of tell it from my end. Essentially, I received an email from him just with the idea. The email started with, "Hey, bud, what do you think about doing a PT Day of Service?" And he went on to describe this day where everyone did some sort of act of service all on the same day and posted the pictures and videos to social media to describe or kind of demonstrate how the PT profession could come together and what it's capable of when it collectively acts. And so as I read through that email, I started having this visceral response. My heart started beating faster and this hair on my skin stood up, and I started thinking to myself, this is such a great idea. We have to do this. And so I remember opening up my laptop and starting to type an email back to Ifosa. And I thought to myself, how do I convince Ifosa that this is something that we have to do? And so I believe I used the words, Ifosa, we can't not do this. We absolutely have to do this. And Steve, it was there that it really sparked my passion. And what I found is there's a few things when you jump in on an idea that's that big that really helped us through the process. I think first and foremost, we came up with the notion. We said, even if there's only one other person that serves with me and Ifosa, the two of us on the same day, well, that's still 3 people serving, together, and that's still a good thing. So worst case scenario, we'll have a small impact. But what we ended up doing is we started calling some of our friends and pitching the idea to them and seeing what they thought. And as they responded warmly, we started spreading the message. And then slowly we gathered a team of 10 around us to help build out a charter for the day. So the first and most important point, I think, is really surrounding yourself with great people. Yeah. That first year that we were going about it, I could look to the person to the left of me and look to the person to the right of me and say, this is an incredible person, and they're helping spread the message of PTDOS. They get it, and they want to help us spread it.
Well, that's the first lesson of leadership for sure. Surround yourself with the right people. I couldn't agree with you
exactly.
more on that. But let's dig into this deeper, because what impresses me and intrigues me about this so much is that a lot of people got good ideas, and it's like, oh, wouldn't this be cool to do it? But you guys got together in the first year, had success that is unbelievable. And I would even go as far to say that the PT profession's a little conservative with new ideas and a little conservative about doing something different, to the point where sometimes you come with an idea and instead of getting encouragement, you might get a little, oh, man, that's been tried before, or, oh, that'll never work, or, it's a great idea, but I don't see how that's going to happen. So how do you guys take that idea besides just surround yourself with the right people and make this thing happen in so fast. I mean, in a year or two, this thing has just blossomed to be a worldwide event.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for saying that. And last year, we were fortunate to have 42 countries join us, and I think we have 37 as of this year. The day this year is coming up fast. It's on October 14th. Um, that's a great question. So I'll give you a quick anecdote, and then what I learned from it. First and foremost, I think it's important to preface the anecdote by saying the PT profession as a whole is just so strong that I think we ended up talking to a lot of the right people who really supported and encouraged it. And the response of the PT profession is really a testament to its devotion to service, devotion to giving back. The one anecdote I wanted to share with you is that, and we put this in some of the documents for PT Day of Service this year to the internal team. There was one particular person who was in an important position at the time who we pitched the idea to. And his response, he asked a lot of great questions and it was very thought-provoking, but his response was, I think you should start with this on a very local level first, get your systems down and really try out your processes, see how it goes. And then after you see how it goes, really start to scale it up. And I think that was really good feedback for us at the time. But at the same time, in our hearts, we had this vision of it being a worldwide event, and we knew that it could work, and we truly believed that it could work. And so I think that notion of having a vision and pursuing it relentlessly is where we had success.
Right.
I remember.
I don't not to interrupt you here, but I think that's the difference in that what you described as the advice you got was the conservative kind of, well, this is the way it's always done type of thing. And you guys just blew that out of the water and went big.
Yeah, exactly. And I was going to say, I remember that first year waking up early, waking up at like 4:30 in the morning and just cranking out a bunch of emails to reach out to people to see if they would be willing to participate. And then we knew that we had 9 other people who were doing the same thing to try to spread the message. And once we found the message that worked and resonated, it could really explode, and it grew pretty quickly. And so I think it was so important, if you have clarity on that vision and you know that you want to pursue it, we asked ourselves, what's the worst case scenario? Okay, the world is still going to go on in that worst case scenario. Well, I've put in a lot of work to an initiative that didn't take hold, but we really believe this could work. So having a vision for it. And then I think the other important thing, Steve, is really loving what you do. When I was getting up to write those emails, it didn't feel like work. I was so excited to see how this idea could take hold across the world and see the pictures and the moments and the stories that resulted from it, that as I was doing that, I told myself I would take a break afterwards, but it really didn't feel like work.
Yeah, it's interesting when I've read a lot of biographies and studied a lot of companies. One theme that keeps coming across to me is kind of the never say die attitude. Like there's so many times when you reach a high hurdle you don't think you can get over, or somebody tells you, it's not going to happen, you just need to give up. And people that move on and get to this higher level just never take no for an answer. So I can imagine, even though you've had great success, there were some of those hurdles along the way and some of those times when you felt like, man, maybe we're being naive, or maybe this isn't going to happen, but you kept going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that Ethos and I tried to do and still continue to try to do for Move Together and PT Day of Service to this day is for any challenge or barrier that comes up, we try to view it as an opportunity. We say, okay, we know X, Y, and Z. What can we do to bring the best possible outcome out of this situation? And we found that just by changing your perspective, changing how you approach that barrier, you may get a result that you never expected before. So yes, a never say die attitude, and also trying to maintain a positive perspective and focusing on the outcome at the end of the day, and asking the question really of how can we make this positive.
Yeah, that's so great. You explained it very well. So let's talk about what you're doing right now. So if we look, I know that you're putting together a company called Move Together. And Move Together, it looks like it's made up of 4 pieces, and PT Day of Service is just one of those pieces. So is this something that's a full-time job for you now, and this is what you do? Or is this something that you're creating and working on besides what you do in your day job?
Yeah, so this is something I'm creating and doing aside from what I'm doing in my day job. And so for me, essentially, it's still a side project. So I do want to be clear that Move Together, it's a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and it's the umbrella organization that holds PT Day of Service, which is a program of Move Togethers. And so at this point, one cannot exist without the other. They're kind of inherently linked. And what that's enabled us to do from a program-specific perspective is just give PT Day of Service a sustainable place to rest. It makes it a lot easier on the back end with a lot of the legalities and accounting things that we have to go through for PT Day of Service. But it also allows us to present a wider mission and a wider vision for Move Together, for the PT profession. So as of now, it's started as a side project. We've been able to support one staff member for some time as we've grown our resources and established some partnerships and offered some programs. So we're hoping to continue to grow that as we move forward. And it's certainly something that I would love to spend more time with as it grows. But as of now, we're young and we're working to build that sustainable foundation. So it's pretty small right now.
Okay.
But hopefully the people that we're reaching is growing.
Yes, yeah, I'm sure it is. And explain the other three pillars. So you got your PT Day of Service, and then what are the other three that are part of Move Together?
Yeah, so we like to start with the mission, Steve. So the mission of Move Together is to increase access to quality rehab medicine around the corner and around the world. And so we kind of split that mission up into three separate pillars and how that mission is fulfilled. So the first pillar is to increase the quality and the quantity of clinics around the world. And so we know there are clinics that are out there that exist in underserved areas, and they're doing good things. So we like to ask the question of what else can we do to enhance or help support their services. And then we know there are areas, underserved areas, that don't have any clinics at all. And so we ask the question, how can we build a clinic in that particular underserved community? And so actually this past May in a town called Villanueva in Guatemala, we built a physical therapy clinic, a rehab clinic from the ground up. So that's pillar number one. Mm-hmm. Pillar number two is to empower clinicians. So, Steve, you and I are fortunate in that we have a lot of resources. We have good networks that we're connected with, and we have a lot of access to educational resources. So we ask ourselves the question of how can we help to bring those resources and connections to clinicians who maybe otherwise wouldn't have access to it. And then the third pillar, which is really where PT Day of Service fits in, is to catalyze servant leadership. So we know there are a lot of people out there in the PT profession who want to serve, who have the heart for giving back. And so we ask ourselves, what can we do to help inspire that and help bring about change and help people to express their servant leadership and their servant hearts? So that's really where PT Day of Service fits in. And then within each of those pillars, we have our programs. And with each of the programs, we're really looking for outcomes that in turn go back and fulfill the mission.
And part of the program is you do have some scholarships or some grants, I guess is a better term, that you actually fund to help people take some of their ideas and go forward. So my question is, how do you raise the money to give out the grants? I mean, that takes money and effort and fundraising.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're fortunate that with PT Day of Service, one of the things that we do is offer sponsorships. And so for a certain amount of money, organizations can choose to sponsor the day. And in return for their sponsorship, we offer marketing and things of that nature. So that's a program that's then bringing in funds that we can rededicate towards those scholarships. And we try to have a diverse set of income coming in, a diverse set of revenue. And so we've also established partnerships with other organizations. Just a couple months ago, we officially signed our partnership with APTA, the American Physical Therapy Association. So we're able to support ourselves some from there. And then some from our other programs as well that we've been developing. So for example, when we take folks and go on a service trip to build a clinic, we'll have some funding coming in from that. So it's not all funding comes from one place, but with a diverse approach, we hope we can make those scholarships sustainable on an annual basis.
Yeah, that's amazing. So what's your day job? You say this is your side project now. So what are you doing in your day job?
So day job, I'm still a practicing clinician, Steve, and I work about 24 hours a week out of an outpatient orthopedic center in Fairfax, Virginia, and that's really where I'm fortunate to have a lot of the mentorship that we talked about in a really great environment, and I've been able to do a lot of continuing education with them. And then for another about 10 to 15 hours a week, I'm actually working on a side business with a couple close friends, and so I see patients privately in their homes or in their gyms, and do some wellness care and assessments for them. And so, I keep saying fortunate. I've been very fortunate to create this kind of dynamic career for myself, in that I get to do a little bit of everything. And I found that for me, it's created, my most fun existence. And so there's a ton of opportunity to do different things out there in the profession.
Yeah, so you're a guy that's obviously had great vision and really gone towards that vision and created some interesting things. So without putting you on the spot too much, what's your vision with Move Together and some of these projects? I mean, do you see yourself, is that the end goal, that you want that organization that can sustain itself and sustain a staff, and you be a part of that leadership, and that's your full-time gig?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. The vision, I'll give you the one specific to Move Together, because Ephosa and I have been talking about it a lot. And so the vision for Move Together specifically we talk about is a clinic in every community that needs one, and a community in every clinic. And so, yeah, definitely, I would love to spend a chunk of time working on Move Together and trying to build clinics and build sustainable resources for areas that need them the most. I think that would be a lot of fun. But another area that I've been exploring with some close friends, as I referenced, is what else can we do to innovate in the profession? I think there's a ton of opportunity to offer new types of services to the public, especially in the United States, a public that's becoming a lot more aware of their needs for movement and health and wellness through exercise and mobility. And so I would love to also innovate that a little bit and see what else we can do. There's a number that was actually thrown out at the Graham sessions last year that really resonated with me, and I've had a lot of conversations about it with friends as well. Someone said that with physical therapy, we're actually only getting 8% of the referrals of individuals who come to a primary care physician with musculoskeletal pain or just impairment. Right. 8%. And so it's really beg the question of, what can we do to get the 92%? I'm not even worried about what another PT does. I hope they're having success. What can we do to infiltrate that 92%? Because I think if we do, it'll lead to a better health of the whole society. So I'd like to spend some time playing there as well.
Yeah, we've had so many discussions about we tend to compete and fight and challenge each other after that 8%. Where, if everyone was super successful and we increased that 8% to even 15% or whatever, just think of how busy we'd all be and how we'd be able to just continue to have a positive effect on the population of this country and the world. So it's definitely something that I think we can focus on. So let me just go back to something. So one of the things I hear a lot is, again, I love to hear about your journey, because I think it's unique, and I think it's you've taken some risk. So you're a new professional that got out of school, and I know you went to George Washington University, which I know is extremely expensive, and I'm sure you had a lot of school debt, or have a lot of school debt. So how do you not just hunker down and get in a traditional job and make money the old-fashioned way to try and pay down that debt loan? But you've stepped out and tried some other things that I would assume have some financial risk involved.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's led to some good and some challenging conversations, especially with my parents, because I do have a hefty load of debt. I think first and foremost, it's just assuring that you can cover your basic needs, and assuring you can pay that from year to year. And so I've been able to do that, even though I'm only 24 hours in the clinic right now. That's been a consistent paycheck for me, and that's enough to cover my bases. So there's a baseline level of responsibility that I want to stick to. And then you can really mitigate that risk if you have, something that you can fall back on should these other things not pan out, and it may lead to working longer days on some days, or working longer hours some weeks. But I'm okay with that at the end of the day, because, I really want to create an existence in a profession that I love seeing patients every day, or I love working on Move Together every day. And it goes back to what we talked about a little bit earlier. If you love what you do, it doesn't end up feeling like work.
Yeah.
So I've been able to
you're not counting hours. You're not counting hours. You're living your dream, and it's almost sometimes I think, gosh, when the human body was designed, there's one flaw is that we have to sleep too much. If we could just sleep like 1 hour a day, think of how much we could get done, right?
Yeah, exactly. And there's one other thing I want to mention too. There's a guy I did a mentorship call with who I met at a conference. His name is Michael Johnson, and we actually only ended up having one conversation. But he said something to me that I would never forget, and really changed my perspective. He said the simplest of things. He said that if you wake up more than 2 days in a row and you're not excited to get out of bed, or you're not excited to go to work, then you need to start thinking about making a change. And it was at a point where I was starting to count hours, and I was starting to think about, that I didn't want to go into work. And so he kind of reassured me that it was okay to feel what I was feeling, that it's okay to think about making a change. Right. And that led to a lot of the decisions I would make thereafter.
Yeah, I know Michael Johnson. He's a great guy. And I just want to say that one thing that you said there that I want our listeners to grab onto, hopefully, is that you did what I think is amazing, and we should all do more of, is you just talk to people, you just build relationships, and then you listen. And every once in a while, someone comes with a pearl that's just like, oh my gosh, and you just go with it, and it makes a huge difference. That's a perfect example of doing just that.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many good people to chat with in the profession that are always have their doors open. So it's something where it's easy to reach out and have a conversation with many people, and people like yourself, and hopefully if people want to contact me, they could do the same. And I was listening to a podcast you did earlier, a couple episodes ago, with Jim, and he gave out his phone number and his personal email address on your podcast. I don't know if I'll do that, but
yeah. And what did he say? What did he say? That he's done that many times, and he's shocked how many people don't follow up on it. I mean, there's a guy with tons of experience, and you should call him right away and just get to know him and ask him the first thing that comes to your mind, because he might throw out a pearl that strikes you, just like you mentioned that Michael Johnson did for you. I can sense that you're pretty bullish on our profession and have a lot of excitement for the future. So, what do you think is the most exciting thing that's going to happen in the next 10 years in this profession?
Yeah, that's a big question. I think that a lot is changing right now because of obviously the Affordable Care Act that's still causing changes on the regulation front, because of technology that's developing so much, because of the public that's becoming more aware of their needs. And so I think one of the things that I'm most excited about is to see how the traditional clinic model changes. I don't know what it's going to be or what it's going to entail, but I think that there are people out there and who are coming up with really good ideas and unique solutions, and getting PT out of a four-walled clinic to really show its value. And I think whoever can kind of figure out the right algorithm or solve the right problem could really help bring PT to the next level, where it's much better known to the public. And so, I don't know if I have any good answers to that, but I'm excited to see what sort of change it can bring.
Well, Josh, as someone who's at one end of the spectrum in their career, talking to someone at the other end of the spectrum in their career, you are the future, and it's exciting to hear someone with passion and ideas and vision, and just going forward and going strong and trying to change in a positive way all the good things we do and make it happen. So thank you for that, and I'm glad you surround yourself with the right people, because it seems to be working.
Yeah, thank you so much, Steve. Those words mean a lot to me. As we started the conversation, I said I really look up to you as a leader, and so it's a pleasure to be on the phone with you here today. And I'm looking forward to some more conversations that we have in the future, and would even love to converse with you on what you think PT will look like 10, 20 years from now. Yeah, well, that's any time, and I just think there is a ton of opportunity, and
and I'm surely not at a phase of my life where I think it's the good times have been had, and from now it's just grinding it out. I don't feel that way at all. I think there's so much opportunity, and it's going to take new and innovative ideas like you and Ifosa and your other friends that are pushing the envelope to show the world really what's possible and what can be done. So it's just been really great talking to you today, Josh. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate your passion for the profession. And I hope you reach all those goals and those visions come true. And if I were a betting man, I would bet on you. So thanks for your time today.
Thanks again so much, Steve. I really, really appreciate it. And we would certainly love for your listeners, too, to get involved. So I'll give out my email address.
Yeah,
that's probably the easiest way to follow Jim in Jim's footsteps. It's just the easiest one to reach me is josh@movetogether.org. So MOVE together, all one word, .org. And I would love to hear from your listeners what they think, or if they would like to get involved, whether it's with PT Day of Service, Move Together, or even just a chat. I'd be happy to do so and kind of bring forward the positive culture that leaders like you, Steve, have set. So thank you so much for doing this and including me today.
Well, thanks for your kind words. And before we leave today, give a plug. I mean, how do people donate money to reach these causes that you're working with?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Steve. So for PT Day of Service, you can simply go to ptdayofservice.com. And this year we introduced that you can become an individual sponsor. So for as little as, I believe, $25, you can donate to PT Day of Service, or organizations can sponsor. And we're introducing new ways for people to donate to Move Together, the umbrella organization as a whole, too. So if you go to movetogether.org and look on the top right, there are some options to contact us and the donate button. And we would certainly be absolutely grateful for any donations you may be able to provide. And we are a 501c3, so it's a tax-deductible organization. And even more so, if you want to spend some time or explore some ways with how you can further get involved and spend some time with us, either on a service trip or a program, then we would love to have that conversation as well. Just fill out that contact form, and we'll be in touch with you shortly.
All right. Thanks so much, Josh. It was a great discussion today, and I look forward to seeing you next time at the next PT meeting. Take care.
Great. Thanks again, Steve. You too.
Thanks for joining us today, and be sure to check out our entire library of podcasts and videos at vgmadvantage.com. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.